Frustrated because your heart rate spikes every time you try to run in zone 2, forcing you to slow to a walk? You're not alone. This is by far the most common struggle new runners over 40 face. I know because I've been there, and every runner I coach has been there too. Most advice you hear tells you to use a run-walk strategy to keep your heart rate in zone 2. But here's the problem. When you're trying to become a better runner, it's demoralizing if you have to walk. What if I told you there's another way? A different strategy almost nobody talks about, and not only does it work, it's arguably better. In this video, I'm going to show you the science behind this overlooked strategy and walk you through the exact step-by-step process to implementing it. With this strategy, you never have to walk again during your zone 2 runs, starting as soon as your very next run. So let's dive straight into it. Legendary coach Renato Canova used a push-pull training method to shift the lactate threshold of the elite Kenyan and Ethiopian runners he coached. These are athletes who have gone on to set world records in the track and in the marathon. His principle is very simple. Train just below the lactate threshold to push it up or just above it to pull it up. Now, in that context, he's referring to lactate threshold 2 or LT2, which is the upper aerobic boundary. Zone 2 training also corresponds to a lactate threshold, but in this case, it's lactate threshold 1 or LT1. It's the lower end of the aerobic spectrum, but the same training principle does apply. And when you apply to zone 2 training, it reframes everything. When your heart rate spikes during a zone 2 run, most people default to slowing down until your heart rate drops back within the zone 2 range. That's the push strategy, more commonly known as the run-walk strategy. You cap your heart rate and adjust your pace, often slowing down to a walk just to keep your heart rate within the zone. The logic behind this is simple. Stay in the right heart rate zone, and over time, your pace at that heart rate will improve. You're basically pushing from the bottom up, locking in heart rate by holding it steady and pushing your pace up as your fitness builds. Don't get me wrong, this push strategy does work, and the review by Jones and Carter backed this up, showing sub-maximal paces at fixed heart rates improves by 5 to 15% over 8 to 12 weeks. But here's the problem. It's incredibly frustrating. Walking might keep you in zone 2, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like progress. In fact, it often feels like regression, and for many new runners, that's a fast track to quitting. Now, let's contrast that with the pull strategy. Instead of slowing to a walk to protect your heart rate, you set your pace at the slowest possible jog. It's the point that is at the very edge where transitioning into a slow jog becomes more natural and more economical than walking. This is often around 7 minutes to 8 minutes 30 seconds per kilometer. For my friends who use Imperial, that's about 11 minutes 15 seconds to 13 minutes 45 seconds per mile. At first, your heart rate will spike above zone 2. That's okay, because over time and with consistency, your heart rate at a fixed slow jogging pace will start to drop. The pull strategy works by anchoring to that pace and letting your heart rate pull downwards over weeks of consistent sub-maximal aerobic training. This isn't just anecdotal, it's backed by a new research study published earlier this year. Satish and colleagues show that heart rate at a fixed workload declines by approximately 1 beat per minute per week with regular aerobic training. So it's not just an observation, it's a proven and measurable adaptation mechanism. But get this, the pull strategy isn't just about physiology, it's also about psychology. Running, even at a slow jog, feels like progress. It keeps you motivated, and most importantly, it respects one of the most important principles of training, and that's the principle of specificity. If your goal is to become a better runner, then you need to run. While walking might keep your heart rate lower, it doesn't improve your running economy, your neuromuscular coordination, or your connective tissue strength the same way that running does. Okay, I'll admit that when your heart rate spikes past your zone 2 ceiling, you lose some of the physiological benefits of zone 2 training. But that's temporary. In fact, with the pull strategy, you probably achieve your goal of running in zone 2 without needing to walk even sooner. Why? Because between walking to protect your heart rate and jogging with the pull strategy to build running specific fitness, jogging gives you a much better return on your time. You get fitter faster, you feel better doing it, and over the long run, your heart rate will settle into zone 2 naturally. When I started running a few years ago, my zone 2 pace was over 7 minutes per kilometer. Today, it's 5 minutes per kilometer. What most people will tell you is that spending too much time in zone 3 or 4 will lead to excessive fatigue and overtraining. Yes, they're absolutely correct. But let's be honest here. For most people who can't stay in zone 2 without walking, their total weekly training volume isn't high enough to risk overtraining, even if they're dipping into zone 3 or zone 4 with every run. The idea that any time spent running in these gray zones ruins your progress is just not true. It only becomes a problem if you're running 30, 40, 50 or more miles a week. And by the time you build up to that weekly mileage, you probably have developed the adaptations needed to comfortably run all the way in Zone 2. But before we go on, let me ask you something. Why are you trying to run in Zone 2? My guess is you're either aiming to lose excess fat or improve your metabolic health. And sure, any scale can show you're losing weight, but that number alone doesn't tell you what kind. Is it fat, muscle, or bone density? For us runners over 40, losing muscle or bone is the last thing you want. So, how do you measure if the weight you're losing is really fat and whether your metabolic health is actually improving? That's where the sponsor of today's video comes in. The Hume Health Body Pod is the world's first portable body analyzer, and it's been a complete game changer for me, giving me detailed insights into my body's fat percentage, all from the comfort of my own home. I can track my body fat daily and see exactly how it's trending based on my training. But it doesn't stop there. It breaks down your fat into subcutaneous and visceral fat, so you know whether it's just surface level vanity fat or the more dangerous kind stored around your organs. Most smart scales can't tell you the difference. The BodyPod can. It also calculates your metabolic age based on a full range of biomarkers. My chronological age is 47, but my metabolic age is only 35. That tells me my lifestyle choices are helping my body age slower than the calendar says it should. If you want to try it for yourself, use my code ENDURANCELAB, all caps, no spaces, for 20% off. It even stacks on top of Hume's current sale for up to 50% total savings. But heads up, the code's only valid for 7 days. The link is in the description. Now, going back to the pull strategy, clearly it's way more effective than a push strategy, but how do you actually implement it? We'll get to that soon, but first, we need to understand why your heart rate is so unreliable in the early stages of training. Let's unpack the most common frustration, why your heart rate spikes during a Zone 2 run, even when your breathing feels fine and your pace is relaxed. What's happening here is a combination of 3 things. First, your heart isn't pumping as efficiently due to a lower stroke volume. In other words, the amount of blood pump per heartbeat is smaller. To compensate for this, your heart has to beat faster to meet the body's oxygen demands. It's like trying to water a large lawn using a narrow hose that's only letting out a thin stream of water. Second, your muscles aren't very efficient at using the oxygen they're receiving. Without enough capillaries and mitochondrial density, your body struggles to extract and utilize the oxygen from the blood pumped from your heart. That inefficiency raises your cardiovascular load. Now stay with the lawn and hose analogy. It's like the soil is very tightly packed and the water can't seep through to reach the roots. Third, your autonomic nervous system is too biased towards sympathetic fight or flight response. This makes your heart rate more reactive, more volatile, and less indicative of true effort. In short, your body is working harder to do less. That's absolutely normal when you're new to aerobic training, but with consistent aerobic training, sub-maximal heart rate drops by about 1 beat per minute per week of training. That drop is directly linked to improvements in stroke volume, capillary density, parasympathetic tone, and peripheral oxygen extraction. And this brings us to an even more critical concept, the relationship between your heart rate and your ventilatory threshold. In well-trained athletes, heart rate and breathing rise is in sync, which means that when your muscles demand more oxygen, both your heart rate and breathing ramp up together in a tightly regulated pattern. That alignment helps maintain stable effort and makes Zone 2 easy to identify and easy to train. That relationship hinges on something called ventilatory threshold 1 or VT1, the point where your breathing starts to rise disproportionately compared to oxygen consumption. This aligns closely with the talk test, where if you can speak in full sentences without gasping, you're likely still under ventilatory threshold 1. But for beginners, this synchronization often breaks. You might be breathing normally and feel fine, but your heart rate is through the roof. That's because your cardiovascular system hasn't adapted enough to support your muscles efficiently. So your heart rate runs high, even when the workload feels relatively easy. This disconnect is a hallmark of early aerobic training. As your stroke volume improves, capillaries and mitochondrial density increases, and your autonomic nervous system shifts towards parasympathetic dominance, heart rate and ventilatory response start to align. But that takes time, which reinforces why heart rate alone in the early weeks and months can be pretty misleading. So, going back to the pull strategy, how do you actually implement it? We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, let me ask you this. Do you ever feel that you're guessing with your training? Wondering if what you're doing is really making you fitter and faster? Most importantly, how can you be sure you're getting the absolute most out of the time you put into training? Here's the truth. Running progress doesn't come from just logging random miles. It comes from doing the right thing at the right time. And that's exactly where I can help. I'm now offering fully customized training plans designed around your lifestyle, time availability, current fitness, and your specific goals. Whether you want to run for fat loss, train for your first 5K, or a marathon, these personalized plans will help you train smarter, not harder, so you see faster results without wasted time and effort. And if you want more accountability and direct support, I've recently moved my coaching services online, which means I can now coach runners from anywhere in the world. If you'd like to work with me directly, you can apply using the link in the description. I don't take everyone that applies. I only work with runners who are serious about improving and where I know I can make a real difference in their performance. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start transforming your running, click the link in the description. Apply today and let's see if we are a good fit to work together. Start by identifying the pace of your slowest sustainable jog on flat terrain. It's the pace where transitioning to a very slow run or a jog becomes more natural and more economical than walking. The pace is different for everyone, but it usually falls between 7 minutes and 8 minutes 30 seconds per kilometer. Using your GPS sports watch, take note of the pace and anchor it as your zone 2 pace that you're pulling your elevated heart rate down towards. Then apply the talk test. If you can speak in full sentences at that pace, you're likely below your ventilatory threshold 1, even if your heart rate says otherwise. Commit to running 3 to 4 times per week at that pace for at least 30 to 40 minutes each. Accept the fact that heart rate will spike early on. That's part of the adaptation. Over time, your heart rate at that anchored zone 2 pace will begin to drop. In the study mentioned earlier, Satish and colleagues showed that heart rate declines by about 1 beat per minute per week at fixed intensity. That's what you're aiming for. Trust the data, trust your body, and stay consistent. And as the weeks go by, you start to see your heart rate fall into line with your zone 2 pace. This is how you stop walking and start running in zone 2. So, if zone 2 training is the tool you're using to become a better runner, the push strategy is your fastest, most efficient path forward. But if all you want are the physiological benefits of zone 2 training itself, and you don't care about improving your pace or running economy, then the push strategy, which includes walk breaks to stay within your heart rate zone, might be a better fit. Your goals, your choice. If this helps, share the video with your friends and family who could benefit from it. Also, drop a comment with your experience and hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.